South Africa, home to an animal that for centuries has been emblematic of the continent. The rhino, with its magnificent horn, a reminder of its prehistoric origins, has been revered by ancient civilizations across Africa. Today, over 80% of the world's black and white rhino may be found here in the southernmost tip of Africa. This is the Kruger National Park, famous throughout the world as the home of the Big Five: the lion, elephant, buffalo, leopard, and the African rhino. Despite men's cruel persecution over the centuries, the African rhino has endured. At the turn of the century, it was thought that rhino had become extinct in southern Africa. A small group of less than 50 rhino in the Umfolozi region in the KwaZulu-Natal province provided the breeding pool for today's white rhino population. In the 1960s, a dedicated group of conservation pioneers led by Dr. Ian Player began the massive breeding and expansion program known as Operation Rhino. More than 300 white rhinos were moved here to the Kruger National Park, one of the largest game reserves in Africa. The Kruger National Park stretches over 19,000 square kilometers from the uppermost province of Limpopo and Zimbabwe border in the north to the southernmost tip of Mpumalanga in the south. The establishment of the Greater Limpopo Trans-Frontier Park extended the Kruger National Park into Mozambique and Zimbabwe.
Well, from 437 in 1953, which was the first aerial count done, and I did it, so I know it. Through our work, we translocated the rhino all over southern Africa, and they just grew in numbers. And hunting was part of that, I might add, because the rhino were hunted, actually increased their numbers, paradoxical as that might sound, because the people who hunted had paid such huge sums of money that the ranchers were able to buy more land and therefore have more rhino, and not only that, more habitat for other species as well.
South Africa's efforts brought the rhino back from the brink. In 2012, southern white rhino in South Africa numbered more than 21,000 from under 50 when Operation Rhino began.
That is a great conservation success story. And we commend South Africa in particular, which has over 90% of those rhinos within its borders.
But today, this conservation record is under threat as South Africa's rhino are falling prey to the poacher's gun. The statistics paint a grim picture. From 13 poached in 2007 to 1,004 by the end of 2013. Tracked, shot, and mercilessly hacked to death for their horn. It is here, along the eastern boundaries of the Kruger National Park, that the poachers are carrying on their brutal trade. Ironically, South Africa's success in conserving the rhino have turned it into a target. Rhino poaching forms just one part of the transnational illicit wildlife trade. The illegal trade in the body parts of endangered species generates $10 billion a year, ranking alongside drugs, illicit diamond smuggling, arms, and human trafficking. It is an illicit trade that crosses national boundaries and is run by well-armed, well-funded syndicates with nothing to lose and everything to gain. Since 1970, the trade in rhino horn has been prohibited by parties to the Convention on International Trade in Endangered Species of Wild Fauna and Flora, also known as CITES. Till 2008, there was a limited and controlled domestic trade in rhino horn in South Africa. This enabled traders to source legally harvested rhino horn from the established wildlife industry on the open market. Since the moratorium was placed on the domestic trade in rhino horn, poaching numbers have continued to soar. However, the policy of sustainable use of rhino has continued in South Africa through controlled hunting. This has played a vital role in conservation, with hunting industry substantially contributing socio-economic benefits to the country. It is here, in parts of Asia, that the demand for rhino horn exists. Although rhino horn was removed from the traditional Chinese medicine pharmacopoeia in 1994, centuries-old beliefs about its supposed health benefits have been hard to challenge. From cancer treatment to reducing fever to a hangover cure, there is a seemingly insatiable demand that is fueling the illegal trade. This is the Veterinary Genetics Laboratory in South Africa, where scientists have been testing samples collected from dealers in Southeast Asia. They found samples of bovine, water buffalo, and sika deer. None were rhino. But for those who buy it, this may not even matter. Rhino horn had become a status symbol among the wealthy, the ultimate way for the rich to flaunt their wealth, possessing part of a critically endangered animal thousands of miles away. And as this demand grows, so do the numbers of rhino being killed. Alongside poaching, there have been thefts of stockpiles and robberies in museums as criminal networks try all means to get their hands on rhino horn. Some have manipulated the hunting permit system in South Africa, employing sex workers to pose as hunters so they could shoot a rhino and export the trophy, and with it the horn, for sale on the black market. South Africa, coordinated by the Department of Environmental Affairs, is fighting back.
No bail for such brutal killers. You look at this rhino, baby. In my culture...
South African citizens from all walks of life have been contributing in different forms. In the Kruger National Park, a retired army general has been brought in to coordinate the rangers who are at the forefront on anti-poaching activities. General Johan Jooste works with the park's rangers to support South African security services stationed at the Joint Operations Center.
We have up to 2 armed incursions per day, over 80 a month sometimes. Last year we were involved in about 60 firefights. On top of that we had 108 other sightings that did not result in a firefight. These people come in armed, they come in illegally, they plunder our natural resources and they exit illegally. And I think that is equal to a war.
Earlier this year, the Department of Environmental Affairs announced the South African government's new integrated strategy to battle rhino poaching. Alongside the head of the South African Police Service, Environmental Affairs Minister Edna Molewa outlined the tough new approach to disrupt the syndicates. With the help of international donors, South Africa has introduced cutting-edge technology to complement the proactive anti-poaching work being done on the ground. The South African Treasury has allocated more money to increase the number of rangers, especially in the Kruger National Park. The country's prosecuting authority has begun handing down long sentences to those found guilty of poaching. In keeping with rhino poaching being declared a national priority crime in 2010, prosecutors are also able to enforce asset forfeiture orders against syndicate members. This is the trial of Chumlong Lemtong Thai, a Thai national convicted of organizing illegal hunting permits that led to the export of 26 rhino horn. He was sentenced to 40 years imprisonment. Another convicted poacher, Mandla Chauke, received a 77-year prison sentence after being convicted of murder, 3 counts of rhino poaching, theft of horns, possession of firearms and ammunition, as well as trespassing in the Kruger National Park.
And the number of alleged rhino poachers arrested since the beginning of 2014 has actually increased, ladies and gentlemen. Increased considerably compared to 2013. During the 2013-2014 financial year, 70 cases were finalized against 140 accused nationwide, with a conviction of 61%.
Loopholes that previously existed in the hunting permit system have been closed, as new laws and policy amendments make it harder for poachers to continue their activities under the umbrella of the legal hunting industry. South Africa is working closely with international organizations like Interpol and the International Consortium on Combating Wildlife Crime, known as ICWC, to share intelligence that leads to successful prosecution of illegal wildlife traffickers. Among the successes of this cooperation has been the return of confiscated rhino horn whose origins were traced through DNA testing.
But in most cases,
South African authorities have signed memoranda of understanding with transit and end-user countries of rhino horn products in the fields of biodiversity conservation and management in order to facilitate cross-border cooperation. The first was signed with Vietnam in 2012, followed by an MOU with the People's Republic of China. In 2013, South Africa signed an MOU with Mozambique. Before the signing, Mozambique enacted a Conservation Areas Act that would now make wildlife crimes such as rhino poaching a criminal offense carrying heavy sentences. Back at the Veterinary Genetics Laboratory in South Africa, scientists are at the forefront of fighting wildlife crime. The work being done here will be strengthened through additional funding recently received donation from the UN Environmental Programme and the Global Environment Fund. Scientists are collecting samples from every rhino tranquilized for management interventions, hunting trophies, and from crime scenes. This is being used to build up a revolutionary new database. With every rhino's unique DNA on the system, it will be easier to link the crime with a suspect and ensure successes in court. This year, the Minister of Environmental Affairs, acting on the instructions of the South African Cabinet, announced that a panel of experts would investigate the possibility of a trade in rhino horn. South Africa has invited all stakeholders to make submissions to the panel, which includes internationally renowned experts in the field.
Ladies and gentlemen, a Cabinet authorized the Department of Environmental Affairs in July 2013 to explore the feasibility of possible trade in rhino horn or not. There is no final decision that has been made on this matter, as Cabinet has established the Interministerial Committee and recently we have appointed the panel of experts. We are saying the stakeholders are actually invited to register and participate in the process that will be started with by or commenced with by the panel of experts. The long-term sustainable solutions are linked to the creation of alternative economic opportunities for communities that are bordering protected areas. They are also linked to creating incentives to promote and also to facilitate rhino ownership and the consolidation of rhino populations across different land uses in South Africa, including national, provincial, private, and communal lands. There is a need of dealing with livelihoods issues, and this CITES would like to believe actually has to deal with those issues, and it's about people's livelihoods, because the rhinos, the animals that we conserve, are about people as well. Anything that deals with environment must also involve the people, must involve the livelihoods of the people and the economy. So that's what we call sustainable development as we understand it.
As home to over 80% of the planet's rhino population, South Africa remains the home of this iconic species. The battle is a long, hard one, but one that will be won for the sake of future generations.
It is for that reason that we have adopted a slogan that says, "Not on our watch." I would like to make this call for everyone to become part of the solution. Engage with us, make contributions so that together we can win this battle.